there's something that's like, okay, all right, thanks, Mom. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order the open meeting for Thursday, August 31st, 2023, and ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, August 24th, 2023, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of August 24th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 5, the suggested minute associated with agenda item 6, granting the request of Walnut Way Conservation Corp. For intervenor compensation in the amount of $15,750 for its participation in docket 5 TU 100. The suggested minute associated with agenda item 7, granting the request of Walnut Way Conservation Corp. For intervenor compensation in the amount of $36,750 for its participation in docket 5 UI 121. The suggested minute associated with agenda item 8, approving an increase in the Community Solar Service Pilot Program project cap from 1,000 kilowatts to 1,500 kilowatts as proposed by Manitowoc Public Utilities. The suggested minute associated with agenda item 9, denying the request of Matthew Fernholz for a formal review of his complaint against Waukesha Water Utility. Or the suggested minute associated with agenda item 10, determining that there does appear to be sufficient cause for the complaint alleging that the cost allocation methodology for Heart of the Valley Metropolitan Sewerage District Interceptor Project is unreasonable and unjustly discriminatory, and instructing Commission staff to proceed with a hearing on all counts.
I approve the notice of move we approve the notice of investigation associated with agenda item 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Move we approve the notices of proceeding associated with agenda items 3 through 5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. For docket 1 IC 554, I move that we fully fund the applicant's IC request in the amount of $15,750.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
In docket 1 IC 555, I move that we fully fund the applicant's IC request in the amount of $36,750.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 3320 TE 115, I move we approve an increase in the CSS pilot program project cap from 1,000 to 1,500 kilowatts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 6240 CC 241226, I move that we deny Mr. Fernholz's request for a formal review.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And in docket 9300 SI 126, I move that we determine there does appear to be sufficient cause for the complaint and instruct Commission staff to proceed with a hearing on one or more counts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to agenda item 11, which is docket 9713-FG-22. So this relates to the Wisconsin Grid Resilience Program. This is a DOE formula grant program that emanated from the bipartisan infrastructure law. Specifically, it's the 40101D resilience grant program. And so in front of us today, we have a couple of decisions to make in terms of how we will open this grant round. So I think it's important to note that we're not making any decisions about how ultimately who the recipients of these dollars will be, but we are sort of in the first steps of shaping what the formula grant will look like. According to the requirements of the law, we held a public hearing in January to solicit comments and feedback from members of the public and members of industry along with utilities. We then submitted our application to the Department of Energy in April, and we received approval from Department of Energy in June of this year. So we were allocated $10.24 million. And the way that DOE approves the allocation is they actually spread it out over 2 years. So it's $5.13 million for fiscal year 2022 and $5.11 million for fiscal year 2023. And so there is a requirement that there's a match that is taken care of by the state. But because we're running this through our state energy office, the Office of Energy Innovation, that cost match is actually going to be picked up by the recipients of the grants. And so I think that's also an important note to make as we start to talk about this. The purpose of these grants is a prioritization of projects that demonstrate the greatest community benefit, and that's either rural or urban, in reducing the likelihood and consequence of disruptive events. So we, in our industry and here at the commission, we've had a lot of conversations about resilience and the fact that what used to be low frequency, high impact events are gaining on the frequency side. And so we're seeing them more and more as a result of climate change. And that is impacting all of our utilities, whether they are small utilities, municipally owned, co-ops, or larger investor owned. All of these weather events are having an impact on the electric system, in particular the distribution system. And there have been a set of metrics that we in the industry have used for years, SAIDI, SAFE, CAIDI. And while those are instructive, I think, and we saw some comments from a lot of the smaller utilities, that while those metrics are instructive, they're not the end-all be-all. And that when we, in particular, look at reliability and ways that grids can reduce the likelihood and the consequences of impacts to our grid due to extreme weather, it's going to take innovation, just like it's going to take innovation to get to zero carbon. So I think this is really exciting. This is the sort of the first, I'm viewing it as the first chapter in a long book of funds that are available from DOE. They're going to come through us, but ultimately they're going to end up going to utilities to help enhance their systems to ensure resilience. Because as we become a more digital society, it becomes even more critically important that people have a nonstop supply of electricity. So there are a number of requirements from DOE. We just have in front of us 4 threshold questions that we have to decide. The first is who is eligible under this grant program. So the program itself says that they have to fall within an eligible subrecipient type, and that's defined in the bipartisan infrastructure law. And they don't call out in particular entities, but they say you have to be an electric grid operator, an electricity storage operator, electricity generator, transmission owner, distribution provider, or fuel supplier. And so there's talk in our memo about whether or not we should narrow the types of eligible applicants. States have the discretion to incorporate all eligible applicants in their grant program, or states have the discretion to eliminate one or more potential applicant from their program. And I feel really strongly about maintaining the full list of eligible applicant types, mostly because I've never been a fan of disallowing or dismissing out of hand something before they have an opportunity to put forward their case. We're going to have a discussion about the smaller utilities later on as we make our way through this memo, but as a threshold matter, I am always very uncomfortable limiting the type of applicant, especially when we are in the beginning stages of a grant round. So for the types of eligible applicants, I am inclined to allow all eligible applicants to apply in the grant round. And that's the first decision that we have in front of us today. It's on page 14 of our memo. So Commissioner Hebner, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Yep, I'm in the same spot. I think at this stage, I would like to see what comes in the grants. I would like to have a wider opportunity for technologies and applicant types to see what we find to be most valuable. So I'm at alternative one.
Okay. Commissioner Strand?
I'm at alternative one also. Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. The next decision in front of us are the types of eligible activities for the grant round. So there are, again, an enumerated list of categories from DOE on the types of projects. And we did hear from commenters, in particular with the Wisconsin Electric Cooperative Association, had some ideas in how we should narrow in on the types of eligible activities. When I talked to our OEI team, they did bring up the point that sometimes it's helpful and instructive for potential applicants to hear from us when we're talking at an open meeting what we would like to prioritize. It's not an infinite amount of money. And so I think in terms of the eligibility of the activities, I am coming into this today allowing all of them to be in the round, but at the same time providing a little bit of direction in what I personally would like to see. And in particular, I am not interested in seeing applications for projects that would otherwise be an O&M project. Things like veg management, things like taking care of your poles, the distribution poles. These are tasks that are the bread and butter of electric utilities, whether they are co-ops or investor-owned. So I would not be inclined to want to funnel taxpayer dollars to projects that should already be done by the prudent management of utility companies. So when I look at the list of eligible activities on page 11 of our memo, I really zero in on things like the weatherization technologies and equipment, fire-resistant technologies, monitoring and control technologies. I think especially in rural parts of our state, that ability to monitor and control from afar has the potential to be a game changer. I also am interested in microgrid proposals or the use or construction of distributed energy resources, adaptive protection technologies, and hardening of power lines. I'd be interested to see what those potential projects look like. And then I thought long and hard about the training, recruitment, retention, and reskilling. And it is an eligible activity. And so I would also be interested to see what types of programs potential applicants would have under that training, retention, and reskilling bucket. So that would be my direction. I would not be inclined or as enthused to see things like veg management, utility pole management, undergrounding, things of that nature. So that's where I am in terms of the eligible activities. Commissioner Hebner?
Great, thank you for that. Just a quick question. So you would allow all, though? So
I would.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because I was just, had the opportunity as my position in OMS to interview candidates for the MISO board, and one of the candidates came in talking about how they've developed this artificial intelligence-based vegetation management program for utilities to help them target, precisely what trees they need to trim when, and just do it so much more cost effectively. So I'm not an expert in vegetation management. I just think to the extent that it's something very innovative like that, if the door is still open, then I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's just, hey, we got to trim more trees,
Right.
that's less interesting because that's an O&M task. But if it's, I think some use of technology that's going to help them target and more, and I think they've got to show the metrics. They've got to show the investment that they're making is going to improve the metrics or, make that case. So I didn't have any others. I think the ones that you mentioned are consistent with mine. So did you not have the relocation of power lines reconductoring with low sag advanced conductors? Was that in your list or not?
It was not. But again, I mean, I'm not prohibiting it. I'm just, from my personal perspective, I'm more interested in the others than I am.
And I think some of the question is going to be cost, that with the amount of money that we have here, some of these, like undergrounding, is going to be, you're not going to get far because it's expensive to do that.
Right.
So I'm fine with your list of priorities, and then, so I would be at Alt 1 with Sub-Alt A, and I'm fine with your list of priorities. And then if something innovative comes from the other ones, then I'd sure like to see it, if it's different than what we're thinking about.
Sure, okay. Commissioner Strand?
I'm also in the same place that you two are, and I agree with the list of priorities that were established. I think now's the time to see what people come up with. I agree, though, it's a limited number of funds, but this is the time to be innovative and to start to show us what kinds of things you can undertake. So I'm in the same place, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the first budget item that requires our decision is the total amount available for this inaugural grant round. We have the allocation that totals just above $10.2 million, and then there's technical assistance and administrative costs that are allowed to be used. So the total subrecipient funding available is $9,732,295. And one option that we have in front of us is to provide that full allocation in this inaugural grant round, or we could split it up into two rounds. I feel pretty strongly that we should approve the entire thing, the $9.73 million. The grant rounds that we have done in EIGP and through OEI, have demonstrated that a lot of these innovative projects and a lot of technological projects are costly. And I think in the interest of efficiency, both administrative on our side and on potential applicants' side, it makes the most sense to approve the budget of $9.73 million for our inaugural grant round. Commissioner Huebner?
I'm in the same spot. One question that wasn't in front of us, but that we have dealt with in EIGP, Chair, is kind of limiting like a max for each project.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were fine with kind of keeping that open, or if you wanted to say, I don't know what number, I don't have a number in mind, $1 million or $2 million or $5 million. And we can deal with that in the analysis phase. I just recall back to the first phase of EIGP where we didn't have a limit and some came in with like, oh, we'll take the whole thing.
We'll take $9 million.
And then it just becomes a really apples and oranges analysis almost of like, okay, do we want to give one a huge one or a couple huge ones? So I'm fine following your lead on that. I just wanted to raise, did you have thoughts on
I
putting a
do
limit
have
in?
thoughts, and my thought is I don't know what I don't know yet.
Yeah, it's
And
too
so I
early.
don't feel comfortable setting a budget amount because I just don't know what we're going to see. And to me, what's most exciting about this is that I'm hoping that we see a pretty wide variety from our smaller utilities, which we don't normally see.
Yeah,
And so
that's
because
fair.
of that, I didn't feel comfortable setting a budget.
Great. So I'm at alternative one.
Okay, Commissioner Strand?
I'm also at alternative one, and in our briefing, I talked to staff about capacity, and they were not concerned with issuing the full amount
Right.
in one round.
Yeah.
So, yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. The final question in front of us today relates to the small utility threshold. So there is a requirement that we have to set aside a certain percentage to smaller utilities. And those are defined as less than, let's see, I don't want to misspeak. Is it less than 4,000? 4 million. Okay, so the percentage of awards available to small utilities, those that sell no more than 4 million megawatt hours of electricity per year must not be less than the percentage of customers served by small utilities within the state. So U.S. Department of Energy issued guidance using EIA's data, and under that guidance, we would be required to award a minimum of 21%. Now, based on the calculations that we made, adjustments that commission staff made, and in response to the Wisconsin Electric Cooperative Association, that percentage is actually 24%. So we have to set aside at least 24% for the smaller utilities. We received a lot of comments. The Wisconsin Utilities Association would like us to maintain just the 24% and then make the rest available to the larger utilities. I took the comments from the Wisconsin Electric Cooperative Association and the other co-ops. I took those comments to heart. We heard from Oakdale Electric Cooperative, and we heard from Pope Burnett Electric Cooperative, and then we had others that participated in the public hearing portion. And I am inclined to set aside 75% for small utilities. And that would be about 7.29 million of the total, leaving 2.5 million for larger utilities if they choose to come in and seek those funds. And the reason for that is for me was twofold. Number one, there are other DOE programs available to the larger utilities, and at least 2 of our utilities in Wisconsin have filed applications for those dollars. So that's number one. And number 2 is when you look at the footprint of our small co-ops and the associated cost with trying to make their system more resilient, I think that they need more money. And this is our opportunity to provide that money. Now, does it mean that they won't end up getting 100% of the budget? No, it's possible that the small utilities actually end up being awarded that 100%. I think 24% is way too low. There were comments made that other states have upped that to 50%. I think when you look at our state in particular, the number of co-ops and the number of small utilities that we have, to me, that justifies raising that set-aside amount to 75% of the budget. So that puts me at Alt 2, and I would set that percentage 75% rather than 24%. Commissioner Huebner?
Great, I'll join you at that, for the reasons that you stated. And I'll also say that, this is the first 10 million out of 25. And so depending on what we see, there may be opportunities to change that percentage in the future. But I think opening this up and giving that signal that we really want applications from our small utilities and that they will be competitive and reviewed, creates that opportunity for them to get these funds that aren't available, where other programs are available for largers and aren't available for smallers.
Right.
So I'll join you.
Okay, great. Commissioner Strand?
Yes, I'm also at Alt 2, and I'm very comfortable with increasing that threshold to 75% for all the reasons you both stated.
Okay, thank you. Great.
Okay, Zach, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. In docket 9713 FG 2022, I move that we approve the inaugural grant round consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes our official business for today. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 10:30 a.m.
I move we stand adjourned until Thursday, September 7th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.